Trump administration is corrupt. No one, not even a president, is above the law.
Well, we have a Fox News alert. The Angle has exclusively obtained the criminal referral for Democrat Senator Adam Schiff. It shows the underlying conduct described could result in claims of mortgage fraud. The referral submitted to the DOJ by Housing Director Bill Pulte alleges that Schiff has, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms, impacting payments from 2003 to 2019 for a Potomac, Maryland-based property. Schiff owns a home in California and another in Maryland. Well, perhaps, when the Democrats decided to have Mr. High and Mighty Adam Schiff head an impeachment witch hunt against Trump, they should have done their due diligence, not just on their absurd allegations, but on their own chairman. With us to analyze is Jonathan Fahey, former federal prosecutor. Jonathan, look, the mortgage fraud issue might seem technical or it's just a small, minor thing, but what can you tell us?
Well, when Trump does it, they make it seem like the biggest deal ever when they alleged he did it in the New York case. So that's a fun irony here. But basically, it's lying on a mortgage application to get more favorable loan terms. And when you say it's your primary residence, you get a more favorable loan term than if it's a rental residence or something else. And what's really interesting about this, Adam, this was not just coming from President Trump. 2023, the CNN reported on this issue. So he's on one hand saying he's a resident of California to run for office, to run from House and then for the Senate, and also taking a deduction in California based on the residency, claiming residency in California. And for the IRS, you can't claim residency in both California and Maryland. So he's got a lot of issues because it seems like however this breaks down, it looks like he's saying one thing here, one thing there. He can't be a resident of both places. So it's either was he lying in California or lying in Maryland to get more favorable loan terms. But the irony is so rich here with all of the Adam Schiff, if it's Russiagate, the first impeachment, and now this. It's pretty funny.
He's denying the allegations, tweeting that this is just Donald Trump's latest attempt at political retaliation against his perceived enemies. So it's not a surprise only how weak this false allegation turns out to be. Again, kind of ironic, is it not, that he's claiming political retribution after what he did all these years? These are forms, right?
These are forms, and it's ironic because also, again, CNN in 2023, when President Trump was not the president, was reporting on this issue. So President Trump just didn't pull this out. So this idea that, this is President Trump engineering this, that's not true. And also when he goes on talking about the Epstein files and other things, it makes you really curious because if there's an innocent explanation, why not lead with that, right?
Well, nobody is above the law.
Yeah.
How many times did he say that?
Yeah, nobody's above the law. And if President Trump was fishing without a license, he would have been brought into a grand jury and every Democrat would have been talking about the sanctity of licensing and things like that.
So you had Tish James in New York with this similar issue.
Same exact thing.
And now Adam Schiff. And again, these are allegations. They would have to be proven. There would have to be a federal indictment that issues. But how serious is this criminal referral by the federal housing director, Bill Pulte?
I think it will be taken seriously. Does it mean it will ultimately lead to charges? Who knows? And one of the things they may want to look at, there could be a statute of limitations issue. The statute of limitations typically for federal offenses is 5 years. For bank fraud, it's 10 years. And one of the New York Post articles I read said there was a recent refinancing in 2020, which would bring it within the umbrella of the statute of limitations.
So if he hadn't taken out a mortgage, would any of this be an issue?
If he hadn't taken out a mortgage and said something that, again, we don't know their allegations, but something on there that's false, it wouldn't be an issue. But again, it's a pretty important issue because if he's getting favorable loan terms because of it, if that's a lie, that's a problem. Or if he's lying to the residents of California saying, I'm a resident of California.
Oh, that's another issue. Yeah.
Elect me senator. That's a problem, too.
Got it. Well, we will see how this all turns out. Jonathan, as always, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.